One of the most controversial Doctor Who developments of recent years looks set to stay into the show's new era. So if you cast your minds back 3, coming up to 4 years now, into March of 2020, there was this massive seismic thing that happened and affected all of our lives in different ways. And COVID also happened as well, but that was small fry compared to The Timeless Child, this massive development in Doctor Who lore, which essentially, in a nutshell, for anyone that doesn't know, and I suppose anyone watching this will, but yeah, in a nutshell, it was a brand new sort of origin story for the Doctor, for the character of the Doctor. It expanded their origins in a way that we hadn't seen in the show before, kind of pinning down certain new details and developments, but also leaving lots of room for manoeuvre and lots of things vague. But essentially, yeah, the first Doctor, William Hartnell, was not the first... Well, he was the first Doctor, but he was not the first incarnation of the character that is the Doctor. There are all these other incarnations of this character, of the Doctor, beforehand, including Joe Martin's Fugitive Doctor, including all of these other people that the Doctor had been without knowing it, all the other lives the Doctor had had that were erased from their memory by the Time Lords. And also the Doctor was the kind of the prototype, the first ever Time Lord, from which all the other Time Lords were sort of cloned in a way. The power of regeneration came from the Doctor, who was originally this character, the Timeless Child. That is it in a nutshell, or as kind of as succinctly as I can possibly put it. Yes, it was a controversial thing. It's, as you might expect, it wasn't loved by everybody. Some people didn't mind it so much, myself included. Other people really didn't like it and it rubbed them up the wrong way. And I think as well, for a lot of the people that didn't mind it so much, it was helped by the fact that we'd sort of been eased into it. There had been these leaks beforehand, these plot leaks and things, and an article in one of the newspapers, the tabloids or whatever, which it got the details slightly wrong. It said there were going to be 13 new female Doctors introduced into the Doctor's timeline before William Hartnell. Not quite what happened, not quite what it is, but yeah, that sort of was the gist of it. It was certainly coming from the same source, and then obviously we had Joe Martin's Doctor introduced. It's like, okay, yes, we're doing this, we're going with it, and then we had 5 weeks to prepare for the big reveal itself in the Series 12 finale, The Timeless Children, when everything was confirmed. It was all written as Doctor Who canon, whether you like it or not. The Timeless Child plot developments then informed the next season of Doctor Who, enabled a lot of stuff to happen in flux, like these old enemies of the Doctor that she'd fought basically in her Division days, Swarm and Azure. We had some more Division stuff, some more of Joe Martin's Doctor, arguably not enough really of her, but we got some little glimpses and bits and pieces about what she got up to, back in the day. We met Tactian as well, the Doctor's foster mother, who was kind of integral to the whole thing. She was the character that found the Doctor, this foundling, the Timeless Child, in the first place. And that was basically as far as it went. Chris Chibnall still left certain things vague, like for example, where the Doctor, the Timeless Child, had come from before they were picked up by Tacton. They were found underneath this portal, but had the Doctor and the Timeless Child come through this portal? Were they waiting to go through the portal? Had they been left? Were they waiting to be collected or something? And who were this child's real, true biological parents? And how many Doctors, how many lives did the Doctor have? How many Doctors were there? We don't know the answer to the questions, and quite right too. There's certain stuff that we should never know. People said about the Timeless Child, that it kind of reveals too much, but arguably it does increase the mystery, actually. It adds these extra avenues to the Doctor's story, and these extra avenues that can be picked up on by future writers and showrunners in the future, should they choose. And this seems to be exactly what is happening, because, when Christian left the show last year with Jodie Whittaker and the 13th Doctor, and that era ended, there was some debate about whether this plotline, whether this development would just get quietly buried and forgotten about and put in the corner and never kind of spoken of again. But no, that is not the case. Incoming, returning showrunner Russell Davies has confirmed that The Timeless Child will still be part of the mythology and the lore of Doctor Who. So the sci-fi magazine SFX currently has a Doctor Who special on the shelves for their November issue. I have got a pre-order copy in the post. It still hasn't turned up yet. Fingers crossed one of these days it does. But there is, I gather, an interview with Russell in the magazine as part of their preview for the 60th specials. And there's this quote that's come online, basically been picked up at various places, where he's talking about Chris Chibnall, about the Timeless Child, the Timeless Children. So he says, "Let's stare that question right in the eye. I'm not going to unwrite my good friend Chris Chibnall's work on the Timeless Children. I'm not going to deny what he wrote, I'm going with it. It's absolutely fine." So I think Russell had sort of intimated as much in an interview before he returned to the show, maybe back in 2020 or 2021, where he'd basically been asked about his opinions on the whole Timeless Child plotline, and he sort of said, yeah, I don't mind it, it's fine. And I think at the time, some people were kind of sceptical about this and sort of projecting their own views about the Timeless Child onto Russell and saying, he can't possibly be being honest about this, he must just be being polite, that he's not telling the truth here, he can't possibly actually be behind this thing. But no, there it is in black and white, if there was ever any doubts. And there is also a quote from Russell in the latest issue of Doctor Who magazine, very, very recently published as part of their Wild Blue Yonder episode preview, which in itself doesn't give loads away, but it's still a really interesting read, so I highly recommend you go and pick up this issue. It's the official 60th anniversary issue, it's a landmark issue, and contains loads of stuff about the specials that I've barely scratched the surface of so far. But yes, I've got it here in front of me. So he says here, the history of the Flux and the Timeless Child is dealt with very slightly in this episode. To acknowledge the brilliant work Chris Chibnall did, and to say that's absolutely part of our history as well. So it had already been hinted that the Flux was getting mentioned in this episode. Many months back, we got 5 words, I think, that were from Wild Blue Yonder. 5 words out of context from the script. They're repeated here: Southampton, vegetable, bean, starlight, and flux. And flux was capitalised, still is. So obviously, that is a reference to the Flux in some way. Probably just a passing reference, for both these things, to be honest. But yes, a mention of the Flux and a mention of the Timeless Child. Then Russell reveals 3 new words, very, very intriguing, cryptic words that are also from this episode and will apparently make the whole thing click into place. But if you want to know what they are, go and pick up the issue. I'm not going to reveal that. Go and pick up Doctor Who magazine and support them and go and find out for yourselves. But yes, like I say, there it is in black and white from 2 separate publications, 2 separate magazine interviews with RCD. He's there voicing his support for the Timeless Child plot twist and even saying that it's going to be referenced in one of the upcoming specials. As I say, we don't know how kind of big that reference is going to be. We don't know how big, the whole thing is going to be, how much is going to kind of build on this twist or not in the specials into the future with Shooty's Doctor as well. I mean, slight spoiler warning here, I think I mentioned it in previous videos, but there have been some hints that Ruby Sunday, the new companion for the 15th Doctor, is herself adopted, and that kind of leaves a big opportunity there, I think, for some lovely parallels between her story and that of the Doctor. If we continue it with the Doctor being the Timeless Child, if it's something that they kind of talk about with Ruby and they kind of compare their experiences and stuff, that could be really lovely, really beautiful, really nice to have that in the show and to have that dynamic between the Doctor and his companion. I think at the end of the day, this is always going to happen. Chris Chibnall and Russell are both good friends, as Moffat is as well. All 3 of them, they're good mates. They're not going to just disrespect each other's work like this. We had this before with the half-human thing, right, in the TV movie with the 8th Doctor. When Russell first returned, that was in the air because that was the most recent episode at the time, the TV movie, which kind of hinted at the fact, well, basically said, the Doctor is apparently half-human, and to this day, how do we reconcile that with Doctor Who lore? Nobody's quite sure to this day, I think. Half-human on his mother's side. How do we make sense of that? How does it fit into the character of the Doctor? How does it fit into the Timeless Child development? Which mother is he talking about? Presumably his mother after the Timeless Child stuff, when he was the first Doctor in his early years. But who knows? Frankly, this stuff is not important and people shouldn't let it get in the way. And with the Timeless Child thing, this was a big thing that happened in the most recent era of Doctor Who, and it kind of kicked off really the 2020s for Doctor Who, for the show. This big developments, it wasn't going to go away. It was going to remain part of Doctor Who, whether you like it or not. And certainly there is big potential, as I mentioned, to develop it further, should Russell wish to. But that doesn't necessarily mean revealing more about the Doctor's character or getting rid of the mystery. It can be character stuff. It can be the Doctor and Ruby Sunday talking about their experiences of being adopted and what that's like for them, and offering each other support and advice and stuff. That is my 2 cents on this, as someone who has never really minded the Timeless Child twist in the first place, and who actually quite likes the episode of Timeless Children, but that's a matter for a different video. I've done other videos about that in the past. Maybe I'll do some more in the future, who knows. But yeah, Doctor Who fans, it's going to be this way. We have different opinions on all this stuff, very strong opinions either way. But what do you think about this? Are you happy to see the Timeless Child continuing into the new era, or were you hoping it was going to go off into oblivion and never be heard of again? What are your thoughts either way? Do you have a strong strong view on this, or are you indifferent? Whatever the case, let me know in the comments section below, and let me know your ideas as well for how this twist could be incorporated into the new era, and just generally, what it could mean for the future of the show. If you have enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new for more stuff like this in the future. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.